For regular exclusive videos like this, check us out on Patreon or become a YouTube channel member down below. Star Citizen is finally becoming a game. If you watch the channel, you're no stranger to the major moves and feature updates coming to the game this year and in 3.23. But these changes are a significant departure from the more tech-focused updates of the last several years. With so many significant gameplay details being set in stone over the next couple of updates, there are a lot more opinions, debates, and disagreements about the right path forward for the game. Today, we'll be taking a look at some of the biggest topics driving discussion in the Star Citizen community, why they're so divisive, and why, for each of them and the game as a whole, the stakes are so high. This is another opinion-based red take released for our supporters in March, a few months before going public. If you'd like to see these videos as soon as they're published, watch my podcast live, or even get your referral code added to our video descriptions, check the links in the video description. If you've already joined, thank you for supporting my Tomato Talks. If you're new to Star Citizen, you may notice things are a bit tense right now. Players have been waiting a long time, about 11 years now for the oldest of us. But this year, things are quite different for a few reasons. First, server meshing, something we will be discussing later, and something that was stated as the ultimate goal for Star Citizen becoming a viable 1.0 project about 7 years ago. It's now been proven to be working in a closed environment, it's been tested between different star systems in Evocati, and as of this writing, I can confirm I've transitioned between servers in the same star system of Stanton. This is the first version of the technology that helps to optimize the load on the game's backend at any given place, splitting space stations, planets, or potentially even spaceships into separate servers that can load assets and data separately for a much smoother game with exponentially increased player count. The other side of this coin is Pyro, the first additional star system to the game. It's been teased since 2017, seriously, 2017.
And right, and that little red, the red cluster you see up there is actually the Pyro system. So when we leave Stanton, that will be one of our destinations.
Pyro doesn't just represent new space in the game. No, it's not just the same system again. Pyro introduces one of the most important aspects of Star Citizen, lawlessness. Pyro brings with it the opportunity for CIG to start balancing the game to make civilized space safer and entice players searching for riskier, higher-paying play and more dangerous frontier systems. This is a star system controlled by gangs and power, rather than corporations and power. Reputation is seeing major upgrades just as this system is coming online, which will add another layer of depth to the game. This is a real chance for us to look at the PvP and PvE conversations, the griefing conversations, the pirating conversations, and understand them as the game was meant to be made, through different areas with different danger levels. Along with these two pillars, major systems that will completely change Star Citizen that have been in development for years in the background are finally starting to be implemented into the game. Engineering complicating multi-crew play and making large ships harder to own. FPS combat changes that lengthen time to kill, add new mechanics in UI, and change the pacing of combat. Master modes turning the flight model on its head, and the biggest of them all, the entirely separate video game, Squadron 42. The real reason Star Citizen has taken so long, the typical endpoint for most of the funding, and one reason many players do feel a bit scammed. This major AAA-sized single-player narrative with the likes of Mark Hamill, Gary Oldman, and Henry Cavill is feature complete. It's just about ready to go, and after years and years of Star Citizen being called the scam game to never release anything, CIG may finally have their chance to put up. Then, of course, there are the sales and financial stakes for us to consider and discuss. With over 1,000 employees, 5 studios, a private investment to pay back, and a recent acquisition, all on top of this MMO that needs to be kept running without an actual fully functional game to play, money can be a bit tight. So yeah, things are a bit tense, people are nervous, things are changing quite a bit, and the anticipation over many things are all coming to a multi-year peak at the same time. It's an exciting and unpredictable time for the game, and by the time this video is public, many conclusions will have been made about most of what we are about to discuss. So let's talk about why these topics are so high stakes for players and for CIG. For a long time now, we've been playing a game based around getting in a ship and flying around, doing everything yourself. This has let us become comfortable with basic combat, travel, and overall operation of some pretty demanding ships. From the beginning, Star Citizen has been about supporting group play, multi-crew ships, and fleet battles. One of the bigger steps in this becoming a reality is engineering. After years of development, the resource network is coming online in Arena Commander in 3.23 and likely in the live game later this year. To make things simple, this engineering system will turn ships into real vehicles. It physicalizes the resources needed for operation: gravity, coolant, life support, power, fuel, and of course the heat. All of these and more are things that are a reality in running a spaceship. Over time, if you don't pay attention to the components that handle these things all over the inside of your ship, eventually they will start to have problems. If you quantum travel for long journeys like a highway hauler, you'll want to make sure your thrusters and quantum drive are up to snuff. As you put your ship through wear and tear, you may encounter glitches. As you take part in combat, you'll have to keep your ships repaired, and maybe as a tuner, you can even give your ship a little buff at takeoff. All this to emphasize the complex nature of larger ships. And of course, on your smaller ship, you aren't immune either. But just like with your car that doesn't take much to keep going, you'll find a daily driver that runs reliably without a worry. As a defining factor behind limiting large ships, this is a part of the argument against a pay-to-progress nature in this game. It's also going to affect all players where they spend most of their time, in ships. It'll begin introducing dedicated and required non-combat players on ships for the first time, outside of industrial gameplay. And it's just been so long in the making that this is one of the more contentious additions to Star Citizen this year. But when it comes to disagreements, I've got a better one for you. Master Modes aims to focus solely on the flight model in Star Citizen. We've seen a few iterations of the flight model, changes to basic flight, updates to atmospheric flight, different philosophies have come and gone, and nothing ever really stuck. It's been frustrating for players, particularly surrounding combat, but overall having to relearn how to fly under new rules. And now, it happens again. Explaining this feature's spot on the list. Much like the flight model pre-3.0, Master Modes aims to separate high-speed travel, then known as cruise, and low-speed travel, known as SCM. In 2.6, this model went even further, slowing down flight speeds and garnering very similar comments to what you see regarding Master Modes now. Something about back in my day. You get the idea. Players have been through this. Slowing down combat speeds to build a more cinematic and overall approachable experience is the goal, and by doing so the game draws more emphasis to an overall combat simulation, rather than just one based around flight speed with smaller dogfighters. Some agree and some don't. I've discussed this quite a bit on my stream, on podcast, and even with the face of the change, Yogi Klatt. How it truly changes the game though is yet to be seen, but a change like this can't be taken lightly, especially considering other professions in the industrial sector. So you can imagine why this feature is under the magnifying glass. Star Citizen is a space sim. It's not just a spaceship game. The first-person aspect of this game is actually really important, to the point that your player's perspective is actually rendered from your eyeballs, less common than you'd think. Being able to load into the game and move between dozens of different tasks from the same perspective is key to the success of the game, and for a long time that experience has been pretty bad. There's no getting around it. It's been passable, but for a while there was no depth in the medical system, no inventory, no looting, no scanning, radar, minimap, or decent interaction system. We've been able to test the system, sure, but now it's about creating a fun and robust game and completely replacing a lot of the old broken systems. Combat in the overall first-person experience is being reined in a big way. Armor is seeing specialization, with helmets being the first. Combat-focused helmets will offer an optional dynamic crosshair for players. Reloading will function differently, with backpack reloading allowing players to access their inventory for more ammo, but with a time delay to emphasize preparedness. Players can quickly loot other characters and objects with a better menu that allows you quick access to your and external inventories. Ammo packing allows you to minimize the magazines you're carrying and better prepare yourself for future fights by refilling and consolidating active magazines. Each weapon type will receive a recoil polish pass to add more nuance to specific firefights and the roles within them, as well as audio updates that add way more oomph to your favorite weapons. Weapon scopes are also getting an update to provide a better effect when scoped in, and new weapon types are being created to better diversify the game and provide more interesting combat. Guns will encounter wear and tear, requiring players to care for their guns or risk jams, failures, and breakage. A new HUD is giving players way more information about their surroundings, their player status, and oh my gosh, a compass and minimap. Radar and scanning is allowing for more awareness of your surroundings. Little tweaks like allowing reloads to be cut off, or more control over how your gun fires right after mantling. Large and small changes are coming to the combat system in order to make the overall experience feel a lot more smooth and snappy. But there's even more going on than just combat. Going back to the minimaps, the entire map system in the game has been overhauled, with the ability to scan and identify all your surroundings, which works in line with the new interaction system, pushing the game into more approachable territory like you'd expect on a fully released AAA game. And finally, character customization is taking a step up with what you would expect from a AAA release nowadays, allowing for all kinds of hair, complexion, skin, and structure customization. There are so many more things changing with the FPS experience in Star Citizen, but just this selection of updates we will or already have seen in 2024 shows a serious focus on taking just about all the placeholder stuff we've been using or the completely missing features we haven't and updating them for a real Star Citizen experience. Whether all these decisions are the right ones is yet to be seen, but the amount of debates about that shows the passion's pretty healthy, and these are pretty big deals that affect everybody. I think the biggest deal right now, though, is Squadron 42. This game has taken most of the company's development time and power over the last 10 years. It has led to the delayed progress of Star Citizen, and it has had what seems to be the most development issues in this whole story. Squadron 42 is a more traditional single-player space adventure game featuring some of the big names like Mark Hamill, Gillian Anderson, Gary Oldman, Liam Cunningham, and Henry Cavill. It harkens back to the Wing Commander days of the 90s and acts as the shiny, polished cinematic narrative introduction to Star Citizen. But with new offices popping up, tons of new employees, studio acquisitions, and the constant development of Star Citizen demanding funding, it's pretty clear that the commercial success of Squadron 42 is a must for things to continue as they have. And just recently, I was introduced to a third-party financial audit covering 2022 that noted 2025 as a target year for a majority of the shares on the 2018 Calder investment to be able to be withdrawn. That was an investment mainly made for marketing and other development purposes in Star Citizen, but nonetheless, it is a private financial investment that'll need to be paid back at some point. And the calendar switching to 2025 doesn't mean that will happen, but that obviously does mean the company may want to be ready to begin paying out, and Squadron 42 has undoubtedly been planned since at least 2018 as the method of doing that. With all this, 12 years of hype, a game engine finally complete, and some incredible gameplay showcases finally on display, the anticipation for Squadron 42 is higher than ever. And while I highly doubt it's releasing in 2024, something that'll likely be all but confirmed by the time this video is public, the game's release is definitely getting close. The most obvious sign of this is the one I've always gone by. Squadron 42 won't release until the game systems in Star Citizen are close to release quality. And that, for the first time with 323 and beyond, that's kind of becoming true. And then there's server meshing, the holy grail. If you follow Star Citizen, you already know why this feature is so debated and analyzed. It's because this is essentially what makes Star Citizen a playable MMO. All this time, the game has run on a single server, limiting shard size, the frame rate of the server, the ability for AI to run, the amount of locations we can have, and even to an extent our ability to receive new star systems. Kinda. Server meshing is the actual Jesus tech that people have been waiting for, and it's still unproven in this environment. We've been teased with its possibility for about 8 years now, and various tech advancements have slowly gotten us closer to that point. But in 2024, it's finally working in Star Citizen. It works in other ways in other games, and server transitions in games have always been a thing, but the no stutter, no lag, completely continuous server transitions for vehicles, objects, ships, and bullets, along with the ability for servers to dynamically resize to support different amounts of players in different spaces, is all very integral to this game working. And I can confirm, servers are able to split up small spaces in the game right now. While that's still a more basic form of the server meshing we want at the game's release, it is working. We just don't know how far it can be pushed as of yet. And until we're able to find out, everybody is kind of operating on the expectation that the game will continue to scale. That makes some folks excited for the future, but it also leaves many a bit nervous about how shards will truly work in Star Citizen 1.0. While there are plenty of other high-stakes changes going on in Star Citizen right now, these are the major segments that I think are really weighing on people's minds, at least in March of 2024. From the combat experience, to ship flight, to how our ships even function, and of course, server meshing, players have never had more information about the immediate future of Star Citizen, but also never more uncertainty about how it'll all balance. Almost every corner of the game is seeing major changes this year, all while the lead up to Squadron 42's launch continues. And while some things may not go exactly how we like, it's safe to say right now it's a good time to be a Star Citizen fan. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is another one of my red takes, which I publish months early for supporters on Patreon, YouTube, and Twitch. If you're looking for higher quality, more opinionated videos from myself, I release a new one every month, along with live podcast viewings, the ability to add your referral code to our referral code randomizer, exclusive streams, and more. And if you're just looking for some more content, I publish weekly videos here, podcast and analysis on Space Tomato 2, and gameplay videos on Space Tomato Plays. I hope you'll find something you like. Thanks again for watching this video, I hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you in the next.